during the game. I don't know how she finds all these people, these wild Bruce chases. I don't know. We're going to find out a little bit more about that and about the team she covers. How are you, Daniela?
I'm great. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. And what are you feeding this ball club?
It's impressive. And you know what? I said this at the beginning of the year, and I learned this from the last 2 years of Tigers baseball. I even said it after May. You really do have to play an entire baseball schedule before you start making judgments on a team. And this Tigers team has proved that to us over and over again in different ways, right? That it's a long season. There's a lot of games. And we kind of knew early in this season that the American League was not very strong, and this was going to be an opportunity for the Tigers to be able to do something and make some noise, even though they didn't start the way that they would have liked to. But you mentioned it, since June, they're 37-22 since June 1st, and that's the second best record in the American League, only behind the Red Sox, who we know went on a completely, anomaly type tear the last month or so. So they're playing really good baseball. You see the influx of the young players now that we were told to be patient for. That patience is paying off a little bit. So it's exciting stuff down the stretch. And to have this week with two divisional matchups, two really big series for the Tigers, it's good stuff. You can't ask for anything else when you're watching a baseball game.
Through the end of May, Daniela, the Tigers were 22-38 through 60 games. Tonight will be another set of 60 games, and a win would make them 38-22, exactly flipping what they did in April and May. So that can't be much better than that. You couldn't have asked for a whole lot more than that. And to do it after trading Tarek Skubal and Casey Mize, I guess somebody forgot to get the memo that this team is supposed to pack it in.
It's impressive, and I was on the trip, West Coast trip, when the trade deadline happened.
Yeah.
Skubal was traded a couple days before in Sacramento, and you can imagine, of course, those are key pieces of the clubhouse. Everybody was a little bummed. It was a sad moment to see them go. Felt a little deflating, but that next day, even after Tarek was traded, that next day in Sacramento, it was business. And then Casey Mize got traded just before the deadline on Monday in Seattle. That next Tuesday, it was business, and the clubhouse handled it really well. Even though those are their good friends, that's not an easy situation for a young team like the Tigers to be put in. But they handled it extremely well, and now you're seeing that carry a little bit into this homestand too. So hopefully they can kind of keep going against Cleveland tonight and tomorrow, and then the White Sox come in. Like I said, two really big divisional series.
Daniela, everyone knows what Tarek Skubal did on the mound the last 2 years, back-to-back Cy Young winner, and one of the best stretches we've seen from a Tigers pitcher. But when things weren't going so well, people were looking to find maybe soft areas, or saying that he didn't do this or he didn't do that, or he wasn't a team player, all of those kinds of things. Can you tell us a little bit about the Tarek Skubal you know?
Yeah, I don't buy into any of that. Tarek Skubal is one of the best, genuine human beings that I've come across and that I've met and I've chatted with. And he cares a lot about his teammates and cares a lot about the guys that are still in the Detroit clubhouse now. And I know nobody likes to hear that baseball is a business, but there is that side to it, whether it tends to rear its ugly head, especially when it's guys that you like, the best pitchers in baseball. They're going to, do what's best for them in the long run, and who knows what that ends up being at the end of the year. And I think Tarek was a very hard worker, one of the hardest working guys. He sets a tone for a lot of different things in that clubhouse, and things that are going to continue to be a cultural staple in that Tigers clubhouse were presented by Tarek Skubal, were carried by him, and a lot of guys learned from him. Even when you look at a guy like Troy Melton and Jackson Jobe, Jackson, after returning from the Tommy John surgery last week, he told us, he said, I leaned on Tarek Skubal a lot throughout that process, and just the way that he came back from injury, how did he make himself better? So to know that lasting impact is going to be there, I think is super important. And you don't have to do that when you're one of the best in the business, right? He was reaching out to Max Clark, too. Max told me that when things were going poorly for him in AAA, Tarek Skubal was sending text messages telling him to stick with it, that he's a really good player, he's going to get here. And again, like, you don't have to do that. You're a superstar of the league. That's not something that you have to do to help lead a team. But he did all of those things, and I wish him nothing but the best in the future. Like I said, the business side of any sport can be difficult to deal with as fans, even as players. But Tarik Skubal is an all-around good human being and a good family guy, and his wife and his kids are wonderful as well. So a lot of good things from Tarik that will still impact this Tigers team.
Daniela, what can you tell us about Max Clark? Because so many people see him and they know the excitement that he is generating, and some people painted a picture of him in spring training, but he seems now like he's maybe a little different guy, but still has that joy in his game. What's he like in the clubhouse?
Yeah, I think it's easy to make an assumption about somebody with that little of evidence, right? And Max Clark hadn't really made his impact in the big leagues yet, or hadn't gotten there, so I understand. But he's a grinder, hardworking type player too, just like Kevin McGonigal. He just shows it off in a different way, right? He shows a little flair and personality to his game, which I think is great not only for the team, but for baseball in general. He's great with media. He loves the spotlight a little bit, but he knows he has to earn that, and that's not lost on him. And I think he's been super impressive the way that he's handled himself over, the week and a half that he's been here. I was just saying the other day that he was here for 3 series, but I felt like he'd been here all season. He hadn't even made his Comerica Park debut yet. Right. So a lot of positive things from Max, and he knew he had to put his nose to the ground and work a little bit, and it wasn't going to be easy. He hit the hard patches in AAA and learned a lot from it, and learned a lot about how he's going to approach the game and carry himself in a clubhouse. And for as young as he is, I think there were some really good lessons, and I think he's going to be a leader in there for a long time for this team.
Daniela, you mentioned Kevin McGonigal, and we do that at the risk of people reaching over and putting on their McGonigal goggles during this interview.
Oh, yeah.
But when you think about what he has done as a rookie, and you could see signs, a lot of people could. You could see him probably better than most because you're around him so much. But I don't think many people thought he would be having a rookie year that would be ranking with some of the best ever in Major League Baseball history. Has anyone checked his birth certificate? Is he really 29?
Yeah, no, he definitely is. Have a couple conversations with him. You'll see some of that 21-year-old come out in him. I'm just kidding. He's awesome. Yeah. But he's definitely young. He's been what he's doing on the baseball field. I don't know if anybody actually expected that. I think we all expected him to be a special player and to make an impact on this team at a young age. But to be leading the league and the American League in so many different categories, like his on-base percentage is a .391. That's third best in the American League, and number 1 is Yordan Alvarez, who's in the discussion for who's chasing a Triple Crown. He's having an outstanding season. He's a veteran, and Kevin McGonigal's up there on that list with him. And when it comes to WAR, Kevin McGonigal leads the American League, and that's ahead of Yordan Alvarez, and he only trails Pete Crow Armstrong for tops in baseball. So when you think about it from that perspective, and as a rookie to be able to adjust this quickly, and I think all of us were kind of holding our breath, waiting for him to hit that slump, right? And he had a small one, and when I say small one, it was small, but then last night he busts out of it against Cleveland, and he had some big hits in the series in San Francisco too, but he pitch gets thrown near his head yesterday, and then he just comes back and he's like, okay, we're not doing that again. And has a couple of big hits to help the Tigers win the game last night. So he's impressive in the way that he handles his business. I know when I think back to my 21-year-old self, a student at Michigan State, definitely could not be doing what Kevin's doing right now.
I was trying to remember where I parked my car from the night before.
Right.
Yeah. So when you think of McGonigal this year and the way he has handled this, is it unreasonable to think if the Tigers keep playing the way they have been that he's going to get a lot of MVP votes?
I think he could, but honestly, the more likely one on the Tigers that I think is going to get some MVP votes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think that's like when the catcher position, number 1, is really hard. Yeah. It's really hard to be a great catcher and also find the offense that Dylan Dingler has found this year, because he's up there among WAR leaders this year too. And he is a big reason a lot of our pitchers are as good as they are. Like if you talk to Troy Melton in the development of his cutter, which has made him kind of the lethal pitcher that he has been this season,
right.
He says it's because guys like Jake Rogers and Dylan Dingler were not afraid to call that pitch when Troy might have still been hesitant to call it. They were like, no, we're gonna make this a weapon. We're gonna, help you develop your repertoire and have a few more things that you can go to, have more confidence with it. So a lot of that came from the catchers, and I think that's very evident. Dylan Dingler's a quiet leader in the clubhouse, doesn't have like that loud energy that some guys do, but he does it by handling his business, and his preparation for each and every game is pretty incredible. And I mean, the bat speaks for itself. So to have a catcher producing the way Dylan Dingler is amazing, and he's been a big reason that this team has been able to climb back into the race.
The Tigers' single-season record for home runs by a catcher is 33, and I think he can pass that. If he has a good last month and a half or so, a little more than that, 7 weeks. But when you think about what he is like behind the plate, and if I'm a home plate umpire, Daniela, I don't know if I want to see Dylan Dingler crouched in front of me, because every time I make a mistake, he's going to challenge it. Yeah, and people are going to say, well, you had 3 of them you missed because Dingler found them, and replay showed it. So.
Yeah, Dylan Dingler is excellent at the strike zone. That's has always been one of his strengths, and I think if you look at how many times pitchers have challenged, I think it's 7 in total on the season that Tigers pitchers have challenged, and I think Drew Anderson had one last night that he won, but they leave it to Dingler. They know that they trust him completely, that if he thinks it's out of the zone, if he thinks he needs to challenge or it is in the zone, he's going to do it. He's got it.
Yeah.
So that's become a huge success point for them, too. And I think as Dingler has gone on this season, he's gotten even more confident with the strike zone, if you can believe that. But he's got a very good feel for it. Always has, but even better now.
Daniela, this week, about as big a pair of series back-to-back as we've had at Comerica with the Guardians, and Cleveland was 6-0 against Detroit before last night, and then the first place White Sox coming in. If the Tigers take care of business, and I thought Cleveland had its best chance to win with the matchup last night with Tanner Bybee against Drew Anderson in the bullpen game.
Yeah.
Tigers do what they need to do the rest of this week. They're going to be right there at the top.
Yeah, that they are. And, I mean, the White Sox lost last night, so keeping an eye on that series, too. That's always fun this time of year, scoreboard watching, when you're also watching your own game. But if they take care of business this week, they're going to be in a really, really good position. And you look at the Tigers' record against the Guardians this year, the 4-game sweep at home is brutal, and then they ended up losing a game in that second series to a rainout. And honestly, that might be a huge game that ended up being a rainout, because now you're going to get them, I think it's later this month or in September that they're in Cleveland.
Yeah,
and that game's going to could be a swing game at that point if the Tigers can take care of the business that they need to. But you're right about it being the best chance against Drew Anderson, who has done really well as a starter. He just doesn't have quite the length that you would hope to come from a starter, so it is considered more of a bullpen game. And Framber Valdez threw the ball really well in his last start, so I think we should be excited about what he does tonight. And he's been able to give the Tigers a lot of that length that I just mentioned. Even in outings where he may have struggled or there may have been some traffic on the bases, he's been able to provide length in most outings. So I think they're in a good spot. I really do. And now that Jackson Jobe has entered the rotation, he'll pitch in the White Sox series this weekend. Troy Melton has been nails. If you look at his numbers, it's actually pretty incredible that he's not getting more national attention. I think he deserves a little bit more.
Right.
But it's looking really promising. The one thing that we'll get word on before tonight's game is what's going on with Riley Green. He left the game yesterday with some hamstring tightness.
Okay.
They did say they'll make an official announcement on him before the game tonight. They were still getting some tests done to see if he'll need the IL stint or not. So that could be troublesome if he is on the IL for a little while.
Right. Well, it was a couple weeks ago, maybe, and Tigers had lost a 7-0 lead, fallen extra innings 10-9 to the Orioles, and people said, well, that's it, they won't make the wild card. Well, they might not make the wild card. They might go right past the wild card, win the division, and the way it looks, Danielle, when you think about the American League West, if the Tigers have the second best record of any division winner, and that could be 83, 84 wins, that could do it, they would then not have to play a wild card series.
Yeah.
And they could wind up they could wind up with the 3-6 winner, and that could be another team that didn't win as many games as they did. So I think things are looking about as good as you could have imagined they would at the end of May.
Yeah, and I know you hear A.J. Hinch talk, and it can sound cliche at times that they really do. They play the full schedule, and they're focused on the series that's at hand. But that's how they climb back into this race, right? And that's how they find the success that they do in the successful stretches that we've seen from this team.
Right.
And their eyes never came away from that goal. Like, they didn't, think, okay, well, we just got to try to fight for a wild card spot. Like, they know what's going on in the division. They're like, hey, we still have a chance to win this division. We just have to start playing good baseball. So that goal never faltered. Obviously, you want to get into the dance no matter what way you can, but they know how long a season is, and they're going to try to win the division. That's what their goal is. It has been the last couple of years, and I don't think that changed in any way. Like I said at the beginning of our conversation, it's a down American League year.
Right.
There aren't many teams that are going to be better than you at your best. So get in there and let's make a run at it. Take a shot at going as far as you can. I think they would love to get to the ALCS. I think that would be what fans would deem a successful season, right? Because we've seen 2 trips to the divisional series and very close losses, game 5s in both of those series the last 2 years. So this team wants a little more.
Yeah.
This team wants a little more.
Our guest is Daniela Bruce, a proud Spartan, and you see her on all the Tigers telecasts, almost all of them that are not network telecasts, with Jason Benetti and Dan Dickerson on Sundays, Andy Dirks, Dan Petrie and company. I want to talk a little bit about your job because it looks like you're having a ton of fun. I hope you're having half as much fun as it looks like you are.
Oh, I'm having just as much fun. I always tell people that ask me about the relationship I have with the broadcasters and the way it comes across so natural on TV is because it is natural. That is exactly how we are off camera. That it just translates very well on camera into the game coverage. We have a blast together, and I work with some very, very great and talented people. Not only the on-air talent, but our team behind the scenes is spectacular. Our producers, directors, camera guys, graphics team, replay team. We have some really, really talented people that work in our market, and I think sometimes that's underrated, but they're great. And every single person plays a little part in our broadcast, but every single person has the confidence to do what they do well and sell the things that they think are going to be good, and that's what makes us all great. And it runs like a well-oiled machine now, which is spectacular. It's been really cool to see the broadcast develop over the last couple of seasons.
Well, an excellent broadcast is a team effort, and I know you don't have 12 eyes, but sometimes all the things that you find and they find for you, if it's someone sitting behind home plate, we figure, okay, eventually Danielle is going to get there. But like at San Francisco, when that little girl was standing there and she had her checklist, I know you have yours, and the bottom of it was meet Daniela Bruce. I guess that's mission accomplished, right?
Right, and that's the stuff that's really fun with it. And the Wild Bruce Chase has taken on a life of its own, which I absolutely love. I think it's great that people think it's fun. They understand that we're trying to connect fans to the team and the broadcast because they are the reason we do what we do, right? That's why sports exists. That's why any of the lines of work that you and I are in exist, because people love their sports and their teams. And I think that's part of my job, to make everybody feel connected to the sport. And it's funny because I get a lot of messages and things about, hey, I have a Wild Bruce Chase idea, and I always write them down, even if I don't reply. So if anybody's listening and you've sent me something where I don't reply, I write down the really good ones, and sometimes it plays out, sometimes it doesn't, but a lot of them, I would say 95% of the things that I do in game are on a whim. and we see it, or our camera guy happens to shoot it, and we're like, okay, yeah, go find that. Like, when they send me to go find somebody, I'm genuinely going to find somebody for the first time. Like, I'm seeing that on the TV screen for the first time, just like everybody at home. It's just my job to go around the ballpark and find it. And I think one of the most spectacular things about it is that every fan that I've surprised, even in New York, when it was a Yankees fan, I did a Mets fan for the Mets series too, that people loved it and played along with it beautifully, which is great, because you never know. Like, these Mets fans may not have any clue who I am, and they have played along with it fantastic, have been like great people. So meeting all of the different baseball people, and of course our Tigers fans are always great, has been something that I was like, I don't know how it's working out so well every time we do it, but it's great. It is so fun watching fans like get their like moment of fame, or whatever they want to call it, or just being recognized as the Tiger fan that they are. It's a really cool thing that's turned into something that has its own legs now, which, like I said, is spectacular.
Aside from the fans and the interaction, Daniela, there are certain things about every ballpark that are kind of trademarks, and you got a pool in the outfield, or you're sliding into something. And have you ever been told no by anybody, or has anybody been able to tell you no?
Do you know the Bernie story in Milwaukee, when I wanted to go down Bernie's slide and they had me all ready to go? I was going to walk up there, and I got to the stairs, and they were like, nope, we decided you can't do it. And I was like, what? Apparently there were some like liability reasons that didn't want me up there that nobody had thought about, but it became a little bit when we were in Milwaukee, and I found the kiddie slide where they would let me go down the kiddie slide. So we did that instead. But that's the only time that I've been told I can't do it. But next time we go to Milwaukee, I'm going to figure that out. We're going to make sure that it happens.
Is there anything on the field that you would like to do, whether it's maybe being there to get foul balls when they come down the stands, or taking balls out to an umpire? Anything like that you've thought of doing?
I have thought of some on-field stuff, or maybe going through early work in BP with the guys.
Yeah,
but you always want to make sure you're not too disruptive. That's also the other thing. Baseball players can be very routine creatures of habit, so you don't want to be too disruptive.
Yeah.
But there's been some things in the works with that. We'll see if it actually happens. To be honest with you, I didn't play softball. I feel fine. Like, I can play catch. I can do the basics of the game. But going out there and shagging any of their fly balls might be a little bit too dangerous for me. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out.
When the season ends, and who knows, that might be the end of October, is there a chance that we're going to see you back in East Lansing?
Maybe. I hope so.
It's been a while,
I do start hockey. It's been a while. I do start Red Wing season pretty quickly, so we overlap a little bit. So I dive right into hockey, but it's a little less of an everyday schedule. So I have been trying to get to East Lansing for a couple of fall semesters now. L.A. Dickerson, still a sports journalism professor at Michigan State. I had her when I was there. I owe her a visit, and I still have not seen the new studio area in the ComArts building, because that was after I graduated.
Yeah.
So I need to get up there, check it out, and visit with some of her classes. So I do need to find a date, and I will be able to do that this year. So hopefully in the fall I'll find myself up there.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Game 2 of the set with the Guardians tonight, 6:40 first pitch?
That's right, 6:40, 6 o'clock pregame.
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much, Daniela.
You're welcome. Anytime, Jack. Good chatting with you.
Yeah, Daniela Bruce of the Tigers Television Network. All right, we're going to spend a lot of time, Rob, talking Michigan State football, but at about 5:15, we're going to be joined by Mark Ewell, Executive Director of the MHSAA, previewing what this season is going to be like. And, hey, we're almost there. It's a couple weeks away. And we are going to have high school football practice now in full swing, so we'll be talking about that. And we're going to have Stephen Brooks with us. Didn't want Stephen on with baseball. Normally he leads off our Wednesday shows, but Daniela has work to do. Stephen can do his work anytime. He was over at the football building today, and we had a chance to hear from Nick Sheridan, and you will do that. And we had a chance to talk with Connor Moore and Cam Edwards, and you will hear from them a little later in the week. But Steven's going to join us, and you're going to get his take on where Michigan State football is right now. And also, he had some hot takes. He had some bold predictions. We'll see if we can get him to share some of those with us as well. Be right back on The Drive with Jack. Jack Ebling here with my good friend Matt Sloan at Graph of Okemos. Spring is here, and so is good news for lease customers.
You got that right, Jack. Pretty exciting news, both at Nissan and Chevy. We have a lease pull-ahead starting right now. So if you're bored with your lease, too many miles, close to too many miles, you just want to get out because of a high payment, bring it in. We'll get you out of your lease and get you into something more exciting.
Stop and see Matt and the gang at Graph of Okemos. They're making friends.
So, it's been a while since you've had your jewelry cleaned and inspected, right? Where will you go and who will you trust with your most valuable and treasured heirlooms? At Meadowar Jewelers' 4 locations in Lansing, Okemos, Jackson, and Portage, jewelry isn't just our job, it's our passion. Each and every piece entrusted in our care is thoroughly inspected by our trained staff against damage or normal wear. And we offer you, our customer, the highest level of quality on repairs and custom designs. Whether it's worn out prongs, channels, or shanks, it's all handled with incredible care. Meadowar Jewelers in Lansing, Okemos, Jackson, and Portage want to help you preserve your memories and offer you options on creating new ones. Come in today for the cleaning and inspection of your jewelry. We continue to work hard every day to earn your confidence and trust.
Dean Transportation is looking for compassionate people to join our team of school bus drivers and attendants. Visit deanjobs.com to see all openings. Dean Transportation provides paid training to obtain a commercial driver's license, increased starting pay, comprehensive benefits, and flexible schedules with no weekend shifts. No experience needed. Apply today at deanjobs.com and train for back to school season. That's DEAN jobs.com.
Are you passionate about college sports? Foster Swift Sports Talk is your go-to podcast dedicated to addressing the hottest topics in college athletics, including recruiting practices, NIL, the trade portal, collectives, and revenue generation.
Join us as we bring you insights from student athletes, college head coaches, administrators, and other industry leaders as they share their experiences in this rapidly changing arena.
Our mission is to share information and help educate student athletes, parents, coaches, and other stakeholders with the knowledge, resources, and strategies they need to make informed decisions and maximize each college athlete's potential for long-term success. Check out our latest episode. We're joined by Michigan State basketball players Andre Hudson and David Thomas to discuss their playing careers and also being parents to elite athletes. Like and subscribe to our YouTube and Facebook pages to watch all of our episodes, or you can give us a listen on any of your favorite podcasting platforms by simply searching Foster Swift Sports Talk. Until next time, I'm your host, Dave Russell.
Just minutes from Petoskey, Harbor Springs, and Mackinac City, golfers will find Northern Michigan's hidden gem on Maple River Road in Brutus, the Hidden River Golf and Casting Club and Travato Restaurant.
The course offers one of Northern Michigan's most memorable golf experiences, and Travato completes your day with exceptional dining. For tee times and dinner reservations, go to hiddenrivergolf.com.
That's hiddenrivergolf.com.
Welcome back. It's The Drive with Jack, Spotlight Radio Network. Jack Ebling here with my producer, Boston Rob, a new rejoin. Rob does a great job with these rejoins. We try to switch them up every once in a while so they don't get stale. All right. Do we have our next guest with us? I believe we do. Stephen Brooks, 24/7 Sports, Spartan Tailgate Premium site. Just saw him out at Michigan State football interviews. Stephen, what did you think of Nick Sheridan today?
I thought it was interesting. He's just somebody I'm hoping to, looking forward to get to know more as we move on. I think he's got a really, a fast riser. He's not that much older than me, first of all. Very fast riser in the business, though, to be a power forward coordinator. At this point, he's worked with a lot of different power forwards. So impressive career. Like I said, I enjoy hearing from him, talking to him. He's very much a football guy, and you get that sense from basically all these coaches and a lot of these players and everything. And you hear Pat Fitzgerald for about 30 seconds, and it all sort of clicks together. You're like, I get it. So he feels and sounds like a guy that would coach for Pat Fitzgerald. I'll definitely say that, because you can tell he's just wired as a football guy, to the nth degree.
Did I ever tell you my story about Nick Sheridan when he was a little kid?
I think so, because I know his dad's been a long-time coach. I feel like I've heard it before once, but it's probably been a while.
Yeah, he was living in Okemos, and his older brother was a player on the teams that my son quarterbacked. And so little Nick would always be there, and he would always be throwing the ball. He would always be, he was just such an active little kid. I think if they had let him get on the field at that age, he would have run out there. And you just knew football was going to be a big part of his life. It was more important to him, I think, than it was to his brother, Joe. And but that's the first time I saw him, and then the next thing I knew, he was a quarterback at Michigan. So
right, and a weird fit that was. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and of course his dad is the only coach who's coached for Michigan State, Michigan, Notre Dame, and the Lions. But had Nick been here during those years, had it flipped, and in his high school years he had been at Okemos instead of Saline, 99% sure he would have been a walk-on quarterback at Michigan State. So it's interesting how that all worked out. What do you think Nick Saban has taught Nick Sheridan when you listen to him?
Man, I just, when you're around an operation that was humming, at the highest level, the way it was. Now, he wasn't there with Saban.
But he was around it. Yeah. And, I think even the name, I'm not sure if he was named for Nick Saban, but that was, didn't hurt. And, he was with Kalen DeBoer at Indiana and, other places. So that's really his tie. But sometimes when I'm listening to Nick Sheridan in the cadence and some other things and the way that he anticipates a question, Saban used to know what your question was by the third word.
I think I can sort of see where you're coming from with a lot of that. I don't have as much experience around Saban, obviously, but I just think, like I said, he strikes you as a football guy, and that was a football guy's program at Alabama, and they were winning titles and everything. Yeah. So, the things that you hear mostly from guys that come out of there is like just the attention to detail, and the things that Saban was worried about and interested in that you never really heard of before. Right. I mean, like dew points and humidities, and that's going to affect the second quarter kick. So we got to do this. Right. Sun patterns. Just the extreme amount of detail is really one of the most common things you hear. So I'm sure there's some of that probably. And you hear him talk, he's and you see him coach. He's a butt chewer of a coach. I'll put it that way. Yeah. And so he's very demanding, but you can tell he's very into what he's doing. I was asking him today, I think he's having a blast in some ways, starting sort of over here. Yeah. He's really at square one, ground zero, in terms of what is this offense going to be. Like, obviously he has a system, but I don't think he has the greatest handle, and this isn't a shot, this is just the reality of the situation. Like, I don't think he has the greatest handle on who exactly he has yet, and what exactly they love to do, what can they do really, really well, all that type of stuff. So, we're not even talking about assembling the pieces of the puzzle. He's got to know what the pieces are first before he can begin assembling. Right. And I think that, if you're a football junkie, if you're a guy who likes to tinker and come up with plays and sequencing and all that stuff, I got to imagine that's pretty fun. And I think a guy like him strikes me like he's probably having a good time with that challenge of what do I actually have here? And then that second half of training camp and obviously going into game week, it all gets more refined down into here's what I know that these guys like and can run well and whatnot. So I think that's sort of an interesting process that's unfolding literally right now, day by day.
And he was asked again today about Carson Gulker and the do-it-all transfer who can catch, run, throw, do just about everything. So when he was asked about that, He said, well, tomorrow's the first day of practice and pads, so we really don't know. Do you think he knows? Do you think he has a lot of things in his head that he wants to try and just won't say? Or do you think this is a time of experimentation?
Both. I think he has probably a lot of ideas that he is going to put into practice and see which ones stick and which ones don't, for sure. I mean, I think you don't rise to this level as a play caller if you don't have some creativity and sort of some outside-the-box thinking, and a guy like Carson Gulker allows you to sort of break the rules and color outside of the lines and do all those things with his skill set. So just real quick for folks, former Ferris State guy, he was a quarterback for them, rushed like 50 touchdowns, I think, then converted to tight end later in his career. Quarterback for Ferris State, you're basically just a big running back. Right. You're running the option, a lot of veer stuff. Then he transitioned to tight end and helped them win a whole bunch of games again. So he's, semi-comfortable running routes, catching passes. So he's got a whole bunch of different skills and versatility to him. I'm excited as anybody to see what they do with him because I love that type of stuff and how unique you might be able to be with some schemes and different wrinkles to work with him. But I'm not expecting to be their starting tight end. I know people are excited, but he's probably going to be a part of their rotation. Yeah, he is still new to the position. He's never played it at this level, so I would expect him to probably be paired with another tight end, somebody who's a little more traditional or a little more seasoned. That could do some more traditional stuff, whereas Gulker could be the motion guy, the mismatch guy. You put him out on the perimeter, and then there's a lead blocker. There's all sorts of trick play potential with him as a guy who can throw it, as a guy who can catch it. Line him up all over the field. But, so I think there's a lot to him. I just don't think he's not going to be like the tip of the spear at the tight end position, but he's definitely an interesting card that they have to play.
Jaden Savory got another shout-out today. It's not the first one, and you watched him a little bit last year. You could see why. There was a lot there that had not been polished. But I get the feeling that Michigan State is going to have a lot of different ways to attack. Don't know whether it'll be successful against the best defenses, but I think there are a lot of things that fans are going to like, and it's not going to be boring. I don't see that. And talking to Cam Edwards today, he seems pretty confident about what he can do. And a lot of people forgot that with him running the ball last year behind Ben Morawski, the Connecticut Huskies were more than a basketball program. They were 9-4 on the football field.
Yeah, won 9 games twice, I want to say, during their time there. Maybe 8 games twice. They did some winning under Jim Moore pretty quietly. Yeah. And I had a really awesome weekend last weekend. I watched a bunch of old transfer tape. By that, I mean, I didn't have a bunch of plans. It wasn't awesome. So I was like, I'll watch a bunch of these old games and see what I can see here. And ended up watching a little bit of UConn. And I think there's going to be a lot of carryover in the run game, at least for Cam Edwards, in terms of just how much zone they ran at UConn and how much I'm anticipating that they'll run under Sheridan. They both mentioned it a little bit today, that there's quite a bit of continuity schematically for him. I don't think that's going to be the case for everybody. I think it's going to be a bit of a transition for most of them, but he's a guy that I think could make a pretty quick adjustment into this system because it's not that too different. And I agree with you. I think there'll be some new things, some modern things, some things you see a lot of other teams doing. Yeah. RPOs, tempo, spreading the field more. Just looking like a lot more of the other teams look like. That doesn't mean the old offense was bad. I think there's a lot of advantages to sort of zagging the way that offense did when everybody's zigging. Right. But this one will definitely be, like I said, like modern, up to speed with all the things that you see in a lot of games across the country. So they'll have ways to approach you and ideas, but I'm still very unsure about sort of the overall production level that they're going to get out of receiver, out of tight end. Not worried about running backs and how they'll be able to run the ball. We've talked about that. I think they'll be solid there at least, if not pretty good. But explosivity, catching the ball on the perimeter, making guys miss, like who are those guys that are going to step up? Because you really only have Krishan McCray as any type of proven pass catcher at this level. Rod Bullard's done some things in Division II and whatnot, but as an FBS guy, McCray is really the only one. So you need at least 2 guys to step forward with him and be, big-time contributors, and then ideally, 3 to 4 behind them that can contribute and at least get on the field, provide something. So that's I have no doubt about the scheme. I think will be sound. We've all seen Indiana and Washington and Alabama in the last few years. I think that's going to be quality. But for year one, what's the quality of the skill components? That's where I'm not so sure.
You mentioned Rodney Bullard, and I'm getting more and more indications that they are not worried about him being eligible. Of course, he's out there at practice, but they think this is more of a procedural thing, and it would be annoying, but they do think that that is going to happen. Remember the game he had last year at Minnesota when he and Alessio teamed up on the long one and then several others. That might be a good fit. I'm wondering about Alessio Milivojevic right now and the comfort level. He certainly seems to be a Fitz kind of leader. Pat Fitzgerald gushes about him. We heard it again today from Nick Sheridan. Do you think they really have a feel for what he can do, or are they just speaking the talk right now?
I think they do mostly. And that's something I was asking Sheridan about and trying to get a sense of a little bit. Because look, every camp, even if you got a 4-year starter coming back, like the beginning of camp, you're starting from square one. Basically, you're getting pretty much everything on the table, and then as camp goes on, you sharpen that focus more and more and more, and dial it back down to the plays you're actually going to run the most often. Obviously, early in the season, and then the things that your personnel can do well, A, and understand well, B, and like to run, C. So that's going to start happening, I think, over the second half. They definitely have an idea from spring ball. It was probably super important, back then to really get an accelerated sort of baseline of like, all right, what is this guy? What can he do? Well, there's no doubt he's grown into the role of being a starting quarterback. He's so much more comfortable with us when, not that that's that important, but I think it's a reflection of how much more comfortable he is in probably a lot of aspects. He's been empowered to lead the team. I think he's accepted that and ran with it pretty much right away. And just when we see him and talk to him, there's a different there's more of a relaxed confidence to him, his body language, all that. You just detect he's very comfortable being in this position that they're in now. I thought it was really important that Sheridan, though, today said things that I've tried to echo all offseason is that, like, look, everybody likes Alessio, everybody knows Alessio, but this is still a young quarterback. Like Sheridan said today, he doesn't have 10, 12, 15 starts to his name. He's got 4. That's a third of a season. So there's just a lot more that we all have to learn about him. I've tried to caution people all offseason. Like, I know he's one of the few names on this team, but that doesn't mean he's a finished product and quarterback's just going to be smooth sailing all year, especially when you're talking about transition systems. No, I think he's a solid player. I think he's got a lot of room to grow. I think he'll attack it. I don't think it will be a concern, but I'm not ruling out the chance that it could be, is what I'm saying. I think a lot of people mentally just sort of went, oh, Alessio's back? All right, we're good there. Check that box. Let's move on to the next thing. And Sheridan kind of made a point today that, like, hey, this is still a guy that's learning a lot about how to handle the job of being a starting QB at this level.
And with Cam Fancher as the backup quarterback, my fascination with backup quarterbacks and specialists, I think Michigan State might be in a better situation than they have been when you have a guy with 30 starts under his belt.
Exactly. And that's why, people are excited about Cade Kaufman and everything, but coaches really love that. Like, they find a lot of comfort in that stability of somebody who's been in the battles and seen things and done things on game day. And I think Cade Kaufman's interesting too, but they brought in Fancher for a reason. Those 30 games that you talked about were a huge reason.
Yeah.
So I'd be stunned if he's not the number 2 all the way through the year, barring injury and everything, just because I think in year one they're going to trust that older guy, and plus he has that mobility aspect to where, let's say he's not super sharp on the playbook or just doesn't have the reps or a little rusty. Maybe he doesn't play until November, but that mobility aspect will be able to bail him out of some trouble that other guys just don't have. So, and so, on that note, I asked Sheridan, like, because that's really interesting, right? I mean, Alessio and Fancher are not alike.
No.
And Kaufman and Alessio kind of are, and it's like, do you want a sort of a variety of skills in that room? It would seem like that's kind of hard to coach and hard to have consistency in a system if you do that. Or would you rather have, 4 guys that are basically clones of each other? And he basically just said, I want the best guy I can find, and we'll tailor it from there. And that's interesting. We're learning every day about these guys and what things might look like. But that's something to watch moving forward, I think, is just stylistically Do they continue to sort of bob and weave around, or is there a guy that they end up circling in on? Doesn't seem like it based on what he said. He said they come in all sizes and shapes, and he doesn't really care.
Yeah, he said that you look at the left guards in the National Football League, and they all look the same, and Z receivers, but the quarterbacks come in all shapes and sizes and skill sets. We're talking with Stephen Brooks, 24/7 Sports Spartan Tailgate Premium site. Stephen, you posted something, and I have to give you props for this, because most people, when they say they have bold predictions, they're usually not so bold. Sometimes they're cold. But you have 8 predictions here that you have posted. If you are a follower, you probably have already seen these. But talking about Michigan State football in 2026, and we'll just get to a couple of them that I think most people have seen. One of them involves Krishan McCray. Call him Big Play McCray, and I guess you can have big plays a lot of different ways.
Yeah, so, the idea is to try to stretch it, right? Like, it's not supposed to be obvious things, but it is hard at the same time because you don't just want to get goofy and just cartoonish. Like, I think there should be a remote chance of some of these things happening. Obviously, I don't believe all of them will happen, obviously. Just need that context out there. So, but yeah, one of them I came up with, and I thought it'd be really hard because I don't do this every year because of that sort of push-pull of like, is it too easy? Is it too goofy? And for some reason, it just came to me this year, and once I started, it kind of just started rolling out, and I was shocked I ended up with 8. Anyway, one of them being, I got Krishan McCray scoring 3 different ways on offense, obviously throwing, catching, rushing, receiving, throwing. I think he's a guy that they'll get the ball to a ton of different ways, jet sweeps, bubble screens. I think he could come in the backfield and take carries, pitch the ball to him on an option. He's that multi-dimensional guy and he is a former running back. He's a guy that I think you could see all over the field, and the more number of ways that they get in the ball, the more you can sort of scheme up some trickery off of that. You show something once. We gave it to it in the jet sweep once.
Right.
Give it to him one more time. 3 weeks later, you fake the jet sweep or whatever. You're hitting somebody on the backside, or you give him the jet sweep. He pulls up and he throws the ball over their head on the goal line. Something like that.
Right.
I just think he would be that guy that's most likely to get a lot of different touches, a lot of different ways, and then that opens itself up. I think he's their best receiver, so I think he'll be featured there. I think he's going to play a lot, and I do think that Sheridan will have some creative things like that, like maybe a jet sweep where a guy pulls up with a pass or double pass situation, something creative like that. So, again, going out on a bit of a limb.
Yeah, and he's also been mentioned as a possible punt returner, not a kickoff returner, but as a punt returner. And if that were to happen, I don't know of anyone who has ever scored 4 ways in one season. Trying to think back. Going back through the vault, I can't remember that. And if Carson Gulker scores in multiple ways, I wonder if a Big Ten team has ever had 2 players, non-quarterbacks, score passing, rushing, and receiving touchdowns in the same year.
I don't know. Jaden Reed's the only guy I can think of because he had the 2 punt returns in 22. I'm sure, obviously, he caught some, and he probably rushed one. But obviously that's just one guy. So, yeah, it's rare. If he can get to 4, I told people I win both showcase prizes like on The Price is Right. I'm only predicting 3, but if he scores 4 ways, I want something for that one.
Everyone knows that Michigan State is going to face 3 of its former starting quarterbacks this season in Spartan Stadium. And a lot of people are looking forward to Aiden Childs coming in with Northwestern. I think the toughest task for Michigan State is going to be versus Caden Hauser and Illinois, team that's had 9-win seasons back-to-back. But you said something that I was thinking about the guy who might be the most productive against them, and that is Noah Kim at Eastern Michigan, and he can throw for a lot of yards. He did it last year.
He did. He did it last year, and that's part of what they want to do, and that's just formulaically what they'll have to do. I have my concerns about Michigan State's D-line. We've talked about it, but there's still some realities there at the line of scrimmage that you see in the MAC against the Big Ten. I mean, if Eastern's able to run the ball, Michigan State is in big, big trouble, right?
Yeah,
so let's just assume that they'll have that sort of in a bottle. And so Eastern's going to have to throw the ball and to stay competitive, to put a scare into MSU. Not only that, he's got his 3 top pass catchers back from a year ago in terms of receiving yardage, so he does have some weapons and some continuity there. And, again, just factoring in game script and what that could look like, I assume they'll probably be behind, probably, by multiple scores late, so they're going to continue to throw it. So, and then early in the year, you're talking about a Michigan State defense that's only in game 2, whole bunch of new transfers all over that 2 deep. Are they going to be, 100% in lockstep with each other, that full 22 2 deep? Probably not, right? There's probably going to be a little bit of leakage early on for so many new players. So maybe an experienced quarterback can find a wrinkle that he can exploit or something like that for 1 or 2 more big plays. And so anyway, I'm just saying passing yardage.
Yeah.
I think Noah Kim ends up number 1. Caden Hauser's obviously in the most, advanced program of the 3 at this point, but they lost a lot of players for this year's team. I'm not sure about the Illini right now.
Yeah.
And then I think Aiden Childs, to me, is the most physically talented, but we just saw him for the last 2 years, what that got him. So, I think you can't rule a guy like that out, but probably going to be more a run-heavy system with Chip Kelly, and just haven't seen enough of him putting it together to say that. So I'm going Noah Kim for the most passing yards of the 3.
As far as Aiden Childs is concerned, Stephen, do you think it will help that Joe Rossi knows him well from practice, from watching him, that they'll be able to scheme some things up when they play Northwestern?
Yeah, of course. Because he intimately knows. I mean, you can see, good coaches obviously can see on tape, but he intimately knows the things that bug him or the things that he just does not like.
Yeah.
Some of that little stuff that maybe doesn't fully come across in film or maybe gets inkling on film, but he knows for sure, hey, he hates, this backside corner blitz or whatever it might be, or he hates getting hit, on his front side shoulder, all these little things. Definitely. I mean, obviously these guys are well paid and experienced enough to watch tape and figure it out. But yeah, if you got that firsthand experience on a guy, definitely.
Not asking you to reveal all 8 of these predictions. Our listeners can subscribe to 24/7 Spartan Tailgate. They can get all of those and a lot more. But you have one here I'm curious about, and see if you want to tease it any more, about a November scenario that's hard to picture. Are you talking about wins and losses or something that might happen in a particular game?
So my prediction is that the final margin against Oregon will be closer than against Washington. Now, obviously, I'm picking Michigan State to lose both games. Those will both be pretty major upsets as we sit here right now.
Right.
And you look at them both. Oregon, might be the best team in the country. They're a real deal national title contending team. Washington's a good team. So they're both better than Michigan State. You would think MSU would have the closer, they're closer in talent to Washington. Therefore, you would assume that's the more competitive game. I'm factoring in some, again, I'm trying to go out on a limb, but I'm factoring in a lot of context with this Oregon thing and saying maybe Michigan State has a chance to make it close that day. So you look at it, it's a Friday night kick. That's weird. That's where you get, unusual stuff happening. Mid-November in East Lansing. Not going to be very pleasant. Cross-country flight for the Ducks.
Yeah.
Into a cold, dark, gray East Lansing.
Yeah.
Probably not going to be pleasant. Michigan State's not a big prize, Are they going to be fully motivated and locked in? 2 years ago, they went out to Wisconsin. The Big Ten champion Oregon team went out to Wisconsin and barely hung on for like a 16-13 win. So we've seen it's hard to keep your eye on the ball. In late November, you're taking a long flight against a team that doesn't really get the juices going. Maybe their eyes off the ball a little bit. And then you look at their schedule, and I think that's the Michigan State game for Oregon will be their 6th or 7th game in a row. They have an early bye week. So it's their 6th or 7th straight week of football. Again, short week, long flight. And then the 2 games before they come out to East Lansing is Michigan and Ohio State back-to-back. So they're going to get roughed up a little bit in those games. Right. Fly out, weird kick, weird environment, opponent you probably don't really care about. If all that comes together in the bowl and simmers just right, maybe Michigan State can have a day where it's a little dicey in the fourth quarter for Oregon. Again, I'm trying to go out on a limb on some of these, but on paper they should be closer to Washington. But I think there's a chance all those things together. Maybe Oregon is a situation that that they could piece it together and put a scare into them for a little bit. I know it's not a lot. I'm not saying they're going to beat them, but I could see that one being closer maybe than the Washington game.
Stephen, did you see the list of the 18 starting quarterbacks in the Big Ten for 2026 based on their clutch performance last year? How they did under pressure, how they did against blitzes, how they did in late game situations. Did you see any of that?
No, and I don't know if that's what we might have talked about that in Chicago, unless this is something different. But it's not ringing a bell necessarily for me.
Yeah, might have been, because number one on that list was DeMond Williams Jr. of Washington. He was the best in the league. Mm-hmm. And number two, even with a very, very limited sample size, was Alessio Milivojevic. You go down a little bit, Julian Sayin is pretty close to the top. You had to go down to 11 to get to Dante Moore. Number 17 was Bryce Underwood, and number 18 was Aiden Childs. So, interesting to think that Dante Moore would be in the second half of the Big Ten quarterbacks in performance under pressure. If you had to pick one Big Ten quarterback to lead your team in 2026, who would you take?
Let me sort of run through it here. I'm not a huge Sayin guy. I mean, he's good for sure, but he doesn't really excite me. I think I'm probably leaning Jaden Maiava. I guess Dante Moore's probably the safe one, but I'm not being safe. Dante Moore, yeah, he's definitely the safe one. But I don't want to be safe. I think Jaden Maiava is a dark horse Heisman guy. You know, with the experience he got last year, that system has obviously produced Heisman winners and finalists pretty much every year almost. So I think he's got a real shot to blow up this year. USC's a team I'm looking at as a real playoff contender.
Yeah.
That's going a little bit under the radar. For Michigan State's purposes, you're glad you don't see them, I think, because I think they're better than people are sort of talking about them at this stage. But I like the dual threat ability, so give me Maiava, but I mean, Dante Moore is the safe and smart pick. But I like to live on the edge, clearly.
I was trying to go through overs and unders for Big Ten teams the other night, Stephen, and looking at the schedule and assigning wins and losses to every game. Of course, it's way, way too early to do that. But the team, I think, is really going to surprise some people, and Vegas is onto it, because their over-under is higher than Michigan's and equal to Ohio State's, and no one is mentioning them in that category. Penn State has as easy a Big Ten schedule as I can recall.
I've heard that. I haven't actually looked at it, but I've heard that they have an easy one. Talking about quarterbacks, like I don't trust or like Rocco Becht a lot that they brought over from Iowa State. He's like your classic, like middle of the road game manager guy. Like he just doesn't excite me at all. But like he's the guy that can lead you to a pretty smooth, decent little opening season if the schedule is in play there for them. So that's interesting. I haven't actually seen what it looks like, but I have heard people mention that they have a really easy outlook in year one for Matt Campbell. So good for him, because we all know how important it is to start fast now in this era and sort of maintain a semblance of momentum early.
Speaking of which, if Michigan State starts 2-2, let's say they beat Toledo, and Toledo also has a new coach with Jason Candle leaving, and they beat Eastern Michigan, and then they lose, and it's not too close at Notre Dame, and then come back and play Nebraska, right? If they lose that game, do you think the fans will be patient? Do you think they will give up? Do you think they'll say, come see me when the team is good? Do you think it matters how those games are played? What are you envisioning?
No, I think most people would still be on board and driving forward. It'd be, the temperature would be dropped a little bit for sure, but I think most people would still be marching forward. Most. The reason that first of all, I guess it would depend on how ugly the Notre Dame thing was and how ugly the Nebraska thing was, really. If it's non-competitive, that would really be a blow. But even I don't think you can lose the majority of folks that early, especially with the way I think Pat Fitzgerald's handled the off season. I mean, people jumped ship so quick on Jonathan Smith on UCLA last year because there was a little bit more history, and UCLA was just the perception of them couldn't have been lower.
Right.
I mean, they lost at home to New Mexico, who, to future Hall of Famer Jason Eck. There's no disrespect in that. That's a worthy loss, it turns out. But they lost their coach early. Like, they just got embarrassed. And they turned out to be a decent team. Like, they put up a little punch late in the year, but their perception at that point was so low. It's like, this might be the worst power team in the country.
Right.
This is a walkthrough. You cannot lose to these guys, and you did. So that whole stigma and everything won't be there in Game 4 for Nebraska. So all those other factors and everything, that's not present. That's not in play. Yeah. So I don't think so. You'd prefer it looks decent, but I don't think this year really shouldn't hinge on any one game. It's about collecting that middle group. Like, you're not going to beat Oregon. You're probably not going to beat Washington. You're definitely not beating Notre Dame. So get that on the table. But who can you get from that middle group? Can you get enough of Wisconsin, Nebraska, Michigan, Rutgers, obviously, UCLA? I don't think any one is more important than the other. Obviously, besides everything with Michigan that's always there. But I don't think there's any one. Northwestern, obviously, in this same group. I'm talking that middle tier. You got to win your share of those, because that's your path to the bowl game. That's your path to momentum. That's your path to really feeling like there's something valuable and tangible coming out of year one. I don't think any one's more important than the other, but you just got to find a way and enough of those to get yourself to 6 somehow, some way. So I don't see much different between those, but that's what it's looking like.
Stephen Brooks, 24/7 Sports, Spartan Tailgate Premium Site, our guest. Stephen, we talk about the law of unintended consequences. And George Perlis always used to say, nothing good ever comes from a loss. But I think for Michigan State football, maybe it did last year. Because if Michigan State had held on, maybe they beat Minnesota in overtime. Maybe they don't keep punting to Caden Weegan and they survive in Iowa City. And they go 6-6 and make a bowl game. And they don't get blown out in the bowl game. Jonathan Smith is still the coach. They were trying to figure a way to keep him, not to fire him. And eventually that path was not there. There was no route to bringing him back. But if Michigan State had been 6-6 last year and kind of skanked into a bowl and start the season with Jonathan Smith, I think those 2 wins might have hurt this program long term.
Probably. I mean, it probably delays things. Yeah, I think it was going to be really hard for Smith to sort of turn it around perception-wise.
Yeah.
And, we don't have a ton of data, and, we'll see that some of it's still incomplete, but the early signs weren't that the recruiting was going to turn it around either. It was more trending in a direction of treading water and sort of standing in place. Now, again, we'll see some of his guys are still here, still developing.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a TBD, but just on paper, you weren't saying like, oh, wait for 2 years for Jonathan Smith. He's getting some guys.
Right.
He just needs to season them up a little bit. No one was saying that, and again, the perception had sort of tanked to where, you're now going into year 3, you're trying to recruit without a lot of wind behind your sails. Like, that's just really hard. So, I don't know. It was interesting how it all came together. Would Pat Fitzgerald be somewhere else, or would he still be on the sidelines? Was this opportunity that good? I know we talked to other schools. Mm-hmm. I don't know how serious they were with him or vice versa exactly. Hopefully that's something we can get into as time moves forward. But, I don't think it was like a one-shot, one window to save the program necessarily. It would have delayed things. Yeah, you keep Smith, you fire him a year or 2 later, you go find somebody else. I mean, no one knows if Fitzgerald's going to work. No one knows if that guy would have worked. So, I don't know. It would have prolonged the suffering, I guess, probably.
Yeah.
Because it would have been really, really hard to pull out of sort of the slow decline that they were on.
Right.
That was obviously accelerated by that UCLA game and everything that came after. So, I think they're in a decent spot now. It's going to be fun to cover. There's definitely more familiar sort of vibes and energy going around and all that. So, but yeah, it would have put things back, and people are just so sick. I hear it and read it and hear it every day. Like, people are they're so sick of where things have been, and it really has been a long time now. I think for a while I was like, come on, guys, down years happen, but at this point it really has been a while where the program really hasn't had a direction, whether it's new coaches trying to figure it out or D'Antonio kind of lingering a little too long or whatever. You knew it was the end regardless, and there hasn't really been much of a direction or hope or reason to believe for the better part of a decade. So I do understand people's frustration, and I think that's all the more reason why it's really important for Pat Fitzgerald to start quickly.
There's been a lot of lethargy. I think just kind of malaise over the program, a big cloud over the stadium, and it was been 10 years, but midway through they had the one mirage with K9, and they won 11 games, beat Michigan, and won a New Year's Six bowl game. But other than that, it's been pretty slim pickings. I had two other quick questions for you, Stephen. We'll let you go. What do you think Jackson Kohler is going to do? Where is he going to play next year?
Well, I haven't done a lick of legwork on this, so I'm just leeching off of what the reporting that's out there. But I saw today, I believe people are reporting that BYU is the favorite right now. Obviously, it makes a lot of sense being close to home for him. I think Kentucky and somewhere else. Somebody else was looking at him, maybe Kansas. Yeah. A lot of people were interested, yeah. I don't know. I haven't talked to him or his people. I haven't followed it. I knew he wasn't coming here, so I'm kind of just waiting from afar. I'm wishing him the best. I think it's a interesting deal for him, and I understand why he's not coming back totally. I don't think people should fault him, by the way. But anyway, quickly to your point, apparently the reporting today is BYU.
Yeah, and that was an area of great interest for the Kohler family, but at one point they weren't sure that offer was going to still be there, so I guess it's still a fluid situation. We're going to find out a little bit more about that, and I think we're going to have Jax on the show soon. The other question has to do with Michigan State's director of athletics, and this search, what are you hearing?
I think things are moving quickly-ish. I'm not super tapped into it, but my understanding is I think it's going to be wrapped up pretty soon.
Yeah.
Very soon is what I'm thinking and guessing. So, I think it was a very obvious candidate that seemed easy to connect early on and might just be that easy. You sometimes wonder when you do this stuff, is that too easy? Are these dots not there? Am I seeing dots that aren't there? And sometimes that stuff doesn't always work out. I think there are dots, and I think they're being connected. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, you're from Kalamazoo. You have friends around the Western Michigan program. What do you know, or what have you heard about Dan Bartholomew?
Yeah, only good things. The people that I know that have interacted with him, I never have, but I've become a fan of him, obviously, because I do keep, sort of one finger on the pulse of what's going on back there. I mean, to elevate the hockey program the way that they have, it seems like he's invested to the point that he can, with that program. Obviously, there's limitations at that level. They're building a really nice new stadium downtown. Now, I don't know exactly how much Western's going to play hockey there. I don't know how much, who's paying the bill exactly. I know the Johnson family is a big part of it. They're big Western donors, but I don't know if that's a Western project or a Kalamazoo project that Western's going to take advantage of. Either way, that's happening. They won a national freaking title. That says something about his ability to manage and retain coaches.
They just won the MAC football championship.
I was just going to get there. Lance Taylor has done a really good job with that football program. I believe that was his hire. So anyway, people describe him as a young, dynamic guy who gets it. They describe him in the same way as Kevin Guskowitz in terms of being sort of an everyday guy, somebody who's down with every walk of life. Whoever you see on the street, can talk to him and have a conversation, I guess, is kind of the vibe that I hear from people. Somebody who really gets it, gets people. I think we'll be able to schmooze the money people. But like I said, has some energy and foresight as a younger guy, but some on-the-job experience with it as well, and just seems to have done a really good job. I mean, Western football should be a lot more consistent than it has been. I think there's a lot of potential with that program specifically. Again, the hockey program has gone as high as you can get. Michigan State's been trying to chase that, so there's something there. And, I think there's some energy there. I think he's talked – I believe Izzo has some sort of relationship with him from the Dwayne Stevens, era and whatnot, so – not that Izzo's making the hire necessarily, but you definitely want that guy's approval. So I think that would be a good situation, a good working relationship there as well. So if he's the pick, it's as I fully expect. I think it's a really good one, not just because he's the closest guy down the street, but I think he, from what I understand and people have told me, he seems like a really good fit personality-wise, culturally, and resume-wise. So I think as that moves forward, as I expect, I think they'll be in good shape.
There is a significant buyout with Dan Bartholomew, but Michigan State getting some money in installments, not all paid up front for Jay Batt, so maybe that kind of cancels it out. Stephen, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. We'll see you Monday at the football building.
Okay, sounds good. Talk to you later.
Stephen Brooks, 24/7 Sports, Spartan Tailgate Premium Site. Rob, talking about the Tigers and where they are in this series with the Guardians. I thought I would wait until Steven was done because he hates his baseball talk so much. But the Tigers, again, number 1 in the American League in run differential. That is runs scored versus runs allowed. Better than the Tampa Bay Rays, better than the New York Yankees and Boston Red Sox. And the only 4 teams that are better than the Tigers are all in the National League. So that says something for a team that's still below 500. We'll be right back. And the plan is to talk with Mark Uyl, Executive Director of the Michigan High School Athletic Association, getting ready for another big year of prep sports. Be right back.
Just minutes from Petoskey, Harbor Springs, and Mackinac City, golfers will find Northern Michigan's hidden gem on Maple River Road in Brutus, the Hidden River Golf and Casting Club and Travato Restaurant.
The course offers one of Northern Michigan's most memorable golf experiences, and Travato completes your day with exceptional dining. For tee times and dinner reservations, go to hiddenrivergolf.com.
That's hiddenrivergolf.com.
Dean Transportation is looking for compassionate people to join our team of school bus drivers and attendants. Visit deanjobs.com to see all openings. Dean Transportation provides paid training to obtain a commercial driver's license, increased starting pay, comprehensive benefits, and flexible schedules with no weekend shifts. No experience needed. Apply today at deanjobs.com and train for back to school season. That's DEAN jobs.com.
So, it's been a while since you've had your jewelry cleaned and inspected, right? Where will you go and who will you trust with your most valuable and treasured heirlooms? At Meadowar Jewelers' 4 locations in Lansing, Okemos, Jackson, and Portage, jewelry isn't just our job, it's our passion. Each and every piece entrusted in our care is thoroughly inspected by our trained staff against damage or normal wear. And we offer you, our customer, the highest level of quality on repairs and custom designs. Whether it's worn out prongs, channels, or shanks, it's all handled with incredible care. Meadowar Jewelers in Lansing, Okemos, Jackson, and Portage want to help you preserve your memories and offer you options on creating new ones. Come in today for the cleaning and inspection of your jewelry. We continue to work hard every day to earn your confidence and trust.
Meadowar Jewelers.
Jack Ebling here with my good friend Matt Sloan at Graf of Okemos. Spring is here, and so is good news for lease customers.
You got that right, Jack. Pretty exciting news, both at Nissan and Chevy. We have a lease pull ahead starting right now. So if you're bored with your lease, too many miles, close to too many miles, you just want to get out because of a high payment, bring it in. We'll get you out of your lease and get you into something more exciting.
Stop and see Matt and the gang at Graf of Okemos. They're making friends. Welcome back. It is A Drive with Jack, the Spotlight Radio Network. Jack Ebling with my producer, Boston Rob. Let's go right back to our guest line. Very happy to welcome in Mark Uyl, Executive Director, Michigan High School Athletic Association. Here we are, getting close to mid-August. Just a couple of weeks, and we will have high school football going, beginning on Thursday night. And practice in full swing. Getting some cooler weather with some cloud cover, Mark. That must be good for the athletes and I'm sure for a lot of health professionals.
Amen. It's been a good first 3 days of fall sports practice. Air quality's been good. You know, we dealt with some of the wildfire smoke here over the summer, but no, Jack, temperatures starting on Monday were manageable. Weather was good, and it's been a good first half of the week here as we kick off the 26 fall season.
We've seen a couple of times, Mark, where it's been like this in preparation, and then you get an early season night, and it really gets warm, and you get a lot of cramping. So I don't know, maybe it's a mixed bag, but Certainly for athletes who are still trying to work their way into shape, this is better than 96 degrees.
Sure is, and especially, the shoulder pads went on kids today.
Yeah.
With kind of our build-up process. It's just helmets Monday, Tuesday. Shoulder pads get added Wednesday, Thursday, and then full pads and full contact starting on Friday. So it's really been a nice kind of ramp-up week. You are right. We've had those years where, 3 weeks from now, it's up north of 90 degrees with heat and humidity. And to be honest, that's even something that our schools can work with. The thing that you really want to avoid on those Friday night are the thunderstorms that roll through, because there's, been years where we've had games interrupted, suspended, have to finish those on Saturday. But, we love Michigan, but part of the challenge of living here is just navigating the weather, and we'll certainly do that.
Mark, do you remember when we weren't as intelligent about hydration and health? And not like we were trying to take chances with kids, but just didn't know as much. And now I think high school football has never been safer.
Never been safer. I would love to get that printed on T-shirts, and that can be my next big idea. Jack, with my kind of turning point or inflection point was when the concussion movie came out about all of the CTE and issues at the NFL level with, concussion and playing on the old artificial turf, which was like playing on a parking lot.
Yeah.
And you look from that time now to, really 10 years later, the way that equipment has advanced, the way that playing surfaces with the new kind of turf is really a safe, consistent surface, the way the game is being coached, the way playing rules have changed. I watched a feature on Brent Musburger here over the summer, and as part of the lead-up, they showed the intro package back from the 70s and 80s on the NFL Today, and Jack, of the 10 highlights to kick off that CBS show,
Yeah.
I think all 10 of those would result in ejections today.
Yeah.
So that was really a stark picture of how the rules have evolved, the way we're just the way that we consume football now certainly does have player safety in mind. And to just the last thing I'll say to link back on kind of the first topic, the one thing that health professionals will tell you is the one type of injury that is 100% preventable is heat illness, heat stroke. That proper hydration, having cold immersion tubs available for students who are in a little bit of trouble, not feeling well.
Yeah.
All of the education that we've done. There's never been a safer time to be an athlete, but certainly never a safer time to be a tackle football player.
Mark, I noticed that the rate of schools charging participation fees has dropped. And I think more than 2 decades, you have to go back to when it was this low. Can you talk a little bit about that and tell us why?
So I think a lot of school districts are really investing in their athletic programs to where, and it's really superintendents. So if let's say that state aid is $9,000 a student,
yeah.
But yet, for those districts, we're going to charge families a $100 per sport participation fee with a $400, max. I know the school that I was an AD at many, many years ago, we did have a participation fee, and it generated about $30,000 in additional income for the athletic department during the year. Well, now what superintendents have realized, when families who live in an area where there are lots of options or choices of where to send your kids, well, if we know that this school district over here has no participation fees, that's going to naturally attract students. Well, if you get 4 kids who now come to your district with their $9,000 of state aid, well, what you've now done is you've covered that $30,000 participation fee hole that you were filling. And I just think that a lot of school leaders, superintendents in particular, have thought in a new way about this topic, and that's why I think a lot of those participation fees are a thing of the past.
So we're just over 700 schools, is that right, now in the MHSAA?
753.
$753. Okay. And what percent then would be charging the participation fee?
I think right now, Jack, that number is moving toward the 15% is all.
Wow.
And what it also does is it really creates a stark contrast, because so many of our high school parents today had kids that have come up kind of in the current youth sports landscape where they're used to writing a check, really being investors in this for your kid to play travel softball or travel basketball, whatever the case may be. And that's just yet another way, while in the school sports space, where we've kind of redefined ourselves that we are the affordable, value-added option that we are in every community, we are in every school, and high school sports. It's really about the value of participation rather than some entity trying to make a couple extra bucks, which is what you see, unfortunately, more often than not in the youth sports space.
Mark, does that percentage of schools charging the participation fee vary by class? Would Class A have a higher percentage than Class C or D? And would urban schools be more likely to have it than suburban or rural schools?
It's really, I would love to be able to identify some specific trends, but Jack, it's really all over the board. We have some urban districts that really struggle with finances, but yet in some of those communities, participation fees are an absolute hurdle to participation. So some of those districts have gotten very creative by finding some corporate sponsors, perhaps, a couple of successful alums have gone on, our business owners, philanthropists, and they've been able to kind of cover some of those gaps. And then we also have some of our very rural and remote areas where same things, lots of kids on free and reduced lunch programs based on, family income and those things. So what we've really found is with fees and even with finances, it's really all over the board. Money challenges do not discriminate based on big school, small school, city, suburban, urban, rural. We're a very diverse state, Jack, and what we've really found through the data is those that are collecting these fees is just as diverse.
We're talking with Mark Uyl, Executive Director of the MHSAA. Mark, wasn't long ago, and we weren't associating name, image, and likeness with high school athletes. That's introduced, and maybe in some places getting a little more of a toehold than others. Your reaction to the way that's been implemented, and how widespread do you think it is?
So we were the 47th state to allow this type of personal branding activity or NIL at the high school space. The nice thing, Jack, when you're 47th and not first, is you can learn lots of lessons from the other 46 states that preceded you. As we sit here today, going back to last January, approximately 150 deals, and I'm using air quotes here while I'm talking to you, have been approved. Of those deals, Jack, only a handful have involved real money. Almost all of these initial deals have been what we call in-kind type things, where a student will post on their Instagram account about the local barbershop, and in return they'll get the free haircut a month. Or a student will post online about a restaurant in town or some other kind of personal service, and in return they're then able to get some food or access to some of those services. I said for a lot of years that NIL at the college level has really become bags of cash, and completely different than what that was intended.
Right.
What we've really now seen at the high school level, Jack, with these small number of deals, and remember, 150 deals so far, and you're talking out of a population of about 170,000 high school athletes. But of that very small group of deals, we've also found that the two deals that have involved the most money have been female athletes, and they've been individual sport athletes. In other words, runners, golfers, because the elite individual kid has a lot of marketability for a company or a product in terms of, well, let's get this phenomenal runner in our running shoes, or let's get this phenomenal golfer into our golf equipment, because they could become a brand ambassador for a number of years. So we've actually, everyone who, didn't read past the headline last January and how this is going to destroy, school sports as we know it.
Right.
The actual experience over the last 7 months or so has really been the opposite. It's been very small. It's been very low scale in terms of actual dollars. And I would make the argument that the way this is currently working at the high school level in Michigan is something that the colleges swung and missed on a number of years ago when they tried to get their student athletes with the ability just to put a few dollars in their pocket for pizza on the weekend and some of those things. So actually, I'm very pleased and comfortable with the lane that we're in.
Mark, am I looking at this schedule correctly that you actually have competition starting this week in the UP? You've got, the 14th or 15th, 14th, you have competition up there?
Sure do. Here at the end of the week, it's opening day for high school golf matches, tennis matches.
Wow.
Our soccer and volleyball teams won't be far behind. We're able to ramp up competition pretty quickly in the fall because the fall's the perfect season where so many of our fall teams have really been ramping up all summer. So they're in condition, they're ready to go. Short week here of practice, and competitions all across the state will be in full swing next week in many of our sports with football scrimmages the end of next week, and then the opening, what usually is the opening Friday night lights, for the first 2 weeks become Thursday night lights with schools not being in session yet, as well as the Labor Day weekend. But it is here. Summer is officially in the rearview mirror, and we're excited about what's ahead.
All right, the question that I've gotten more than any other, I think, about this season of high school competition involves seeding for the football playoffs and some changes or adjustments there. What can you tell us?
So what your listeners need to understand, first of all, is that nothing has changed in terms of how teams qualify for the playoffs.
Right.
The change is how we're matching up those groups of 32 in each division.
Okay.
So if you can imagine 32 dots on a map. So these are the playoff qualifiers in each of our 8 divisions.
Right.
What the old process always was we would start in the western end of the UP, work west all the way across, and then we would start in northern lower Michigan, work down the west coast, and then finally finish up over in the Detroit area. And we would draw, Jack, 8 circles of 4 schools. Now, what the old approach did was it really limited travel. However, the negative part of that is because you had 8 different groups of 4, you could have neighboring 4-team groups with one group having 4 schools that were all 8-0 or 9-0 or 8-1, right next to another group of 4 schools who were all 6-3 and 5-4. And so you'd see a little bit of inequity in terms of who had kind of the tougher path moving forward. So now what we're going to do is we're going to draw only 4 circles, but each of those 4 circles is now going to include 8 schools. And in the first round, the team with the most playoff points, number 1, will play 8, 2 will play 7, 3 will play 6, and 4 will play 5. What it will reduce, Jack, is generally the case of teams from the same league having to turn right around and play each other again in opening night of the playoffs. And in some cases, maybe those 2 schools played in week 8 or 9 of the regular season.
Right.
So I think our fans will see more variety in those early season matchups. And if you do get a league rematch, it might now happen in the second or third round, which really then speaks to the strength of that particular league or conference. So we're excited about it. This is something the Football Coaches Association had really been proponents of now for a handful of years, and we worked through our process, and we're excited about this little different approach kicking off this fall.
So, Mark, let me see if I have this right, so when I explain it to people, I don't mess it up. You still have the 8 divisions, and the teams that make it, it's the same. The 32 in each division, that has not changed. But instead of having 8 4-team groupings, you're going to have 4 8-team groupings, and within those 8-team groupings, you're going to be able to seed, say, a 9-0 against a 6-3, rather than not having any choice but to match 9-0 against 8-1 right out of the chute.
Absolutely right. And like I said, so that was really one of the driving factors. And then I also think kind of if that was reason 1A, reason 1B is, again, having those repeat matchups with schools in the same league, having to go right back and play each other the first week of the playoffs. So we will track the mileage. We will track the travel that's involved for schools. We've committed to this new approach for at least this fall and next fall. And like we do with everything else, we'll look at the data, and then we'll let that data and information drive future decisions.
What was the impetus for that change, Mark? And do you think that the geography with gas prices, etc., might make some people say, well, maybe it wasn't so bad the way it was before?
So I think the geography and gas prices has become less of an issue, because if you look at the distances that schools right now are going to play regular season games,
right.
I think that's less of an issue for a lot of districts.
Yeah.
Also, given the fact if this was a basketball tournament where you're playing at a site 2 or 3 times during the week, well, football is 1 time a week.
Yeah.
Always on either a Friday night or on a Saturday afternoon, and so travel maybe wasn't as much of a driving force. In those leagues where, Jack, you have very strong football, I'll just use where I'm from, the West Michigan area, the OK Red, for example.
Right.
You've got 8 teams, and that schedule is a meat grinder, and for those schools that go through the Red, that qualify for the playoffs, well, in the old system, the first 2 weeks of the playoffs out there were like really a replay of the OK Red schedule.
Yeah.
And I think there was, for those schools that come out of those really tough conferences, just giving a little bit of variety in those first and second weeks to really kind of balance the field a little bit more. And that was really something that drove the change in the process.
So this push, Mark, did it come from coaches, from the representative council, principals? Where does the movement come from for something like this?
So we're a very, for a private organization, we try and do everything, Jack, on a daily basis to act like any other public body. So we are driven by our membership. Yeah. It's not a director-driven organization, even a board-driven. It's driven by our schools. And we had good support with our Football Coaches Association that they wanted to see this change in the playoffs. So where that concept started was in our football committee, which meets once a year to discuss all sorts of things involved with high school football. Do know that every sport has their own individual committee within our structure. And then there was support coming out of the football committee for this idea to move forward. And from the committee, then it went in front of our full board of directors, the representative council, which are 19 members, which are primarily superintendents, principals, and athletic directors from our school. And that idea then got in front of our full board. It actually didn't pass the first year it was before them. They had more questions, more issues, needed more data, and then got sent back to committee. It came back then the following year for passage. So this had lots of discussion. It had lots of buy-in from our constituents, and that's why I think our member schools are excited and very comfortable with this change.
When you succeeded Jack Roberts in this role, you obviously were prepared for it. You had a great background for it. What's the one thing you could not have anticipated, Mark?
A global pandemic. I grew up very fast during COVID, because, I had been in the building for 13 years, took over, that first year and a half, there was a lot of listening. Certainly the foundation that Jack had built was something that we were going to build off of.
Right.
But yet it was also some fresh eyes, fresh perspective. And unfortunately, we had really gotten some good momentum going, and then March of 2020 hits, and what you really then do for the next 18 months is pivot and turn into survival mode. And in that survival mode, you learned a lot of skills about communication. You learned a lot of skills about you better depend on what you believe in your heart and in your gut and what your member schools are telling you, and you need to kind of block out and ignore some of the outside noise, kind of some of the internet opinions, which, can really try and drive things in one direction or the other. So, a lot of lessons I'm sure I would have learned as time went on in the new role as the executive director, but I'm telling you, living the 18 months through COVID, those lessons got a good amount of jet fuel poured on them. And I think because of it, I'm a better leader for it. And I think we're a better organization because of it, too.
Mark Ewell, Executive Director of the MHSAA, getting ready for another big season of high school sports. Be here before you know it. Mark, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate you.
We will be right back. And you're going to hear from Nick Sheridan. And you'll find out a little bit more about his philosophy. He's not telling you what the playbook is. He's not going to tell you what the first play of the season is. He's not even going to tell you who's starting. But I don't know that he knows that. And the first day of full padded contact is tomorrow. Be right back on The Drive with Jack.
Dean Transportation is looking for compassionate people to join our team of school bus drivers and attendants. Visit deanjobs.com to see all openings. Dean Transportation provides paid training to obtain a commercial driver's license, increased starting pay, comprehensive benefits, and flexible schedules with no weekend shifts. No experience needed. Apply today at deanjobs.com and train for back to school season. That's DEAN jobs.com.
Just minutes from Petoskey, Harbor Springs, and Mackinac City, golfers will find Northern Michigan's hidden gem on Maple River Road in Brutus, the Hidden River Golf and Casting Club and Travato Restaurant.
The course offers one of Northern Michigan's most memorable golf experiences, and Travato completes your day with exceptional dining. For tee times and dinner reservations, go to hiddenrivergolf.com.
That's hiddenrivergolf.com.
Jack Ebling here with my good friend Matt Sloan at Graph of Okemos. Spring is here, and so is good news for lease customers.
You got that right, Jack. Pretty exciting news, both at Nissan and Chevy. We have a lease pull ahead starting right now. So if you're bored with your lease, too many miles, close to too many miles, you just want to get out because of a high payment, bring it in. We'll get you out of your lease and get you into something more exciting.
Stop and see Matt and the gang at Graph of Okemos. They're making friends.
So, it's been a while since you've had your jewelry cleaned and inspected, right? Where will you go and who will you trust with your most valuable and treasured heirlooms? At Meadowar Jewelers' 4 locations in Lansing, Okemos, Jackson, and Portage, jewelry isn't just our job, it's our passion. Each and every piece entrusted in our care is thoroughly inspected by our trained staff against damage or normal wear. And we offer you, our customer, the highest level of quality on repairs and custom designs. Whether it's worn out prongs, channels, or shanks, it's all handled with incredible care. Meadowar Jewelers in Lansing, Okemos, Jackson, and Portage want to help you preserve your memories and offer you options on creating new ones. Come in today for the cleaning and inspection of your jewelry. We continue to work hard every day to earn your confidence and trust.
Welcome back. It is The Drive with Jack, the Spotlight Radio Network. Jack Ebling here with my producer, Boston Rob. Rob, we had a chance to hear from Joe Rossi on Monday and Nick Sheridan today. We also heard from LeVar Woods, so we got all 3 MSU coordinators, and we've gotten plenty of Pat Fitzgerald. Not that you can ever get too much Pat Fitzgerald. Depends on the time of day, I guess. But we've had a chance to learn quite a bit about this Michigan State football team and watch a little bit of practice on Monday. We didn't see them running plays, but we saw some individual stuff. We saw some guys going through blocking drills and receivers catching balls and defensive backs working on coverage and using the sideline as a 12th defender, all of those things. And the big conclusion I would draw is pacing. The pace of this is unlike any I have seen, and that includes in the Perlis and Saban eras. Here is today's conversation with Nick Sheridan talking about the MSU offense.
You think you guys made the biggest leap when you look back at spring practice, just over those 15 or whatever, and where do you want to see the biggest leap fall camp?
Well, I just think, foundational understanding of vocabulary, what words mean, how to line up, what's a 2x2 and a 3x1 formation, what are an inside zone play to the right or to the left, how we're going to communicate. Certainly the guys have done a great job throughout the summer, just kind of digesting the things that we taught them in the spring and building on that. And I think as you work through camp, the biggest thing is just the precision in the detail, the ability to execute consistently, play in after, one play at a time. And so guys are working hard towards that, but that's why you need practice. We need every second, every walkthrough, every installation meeting, every film review. We need it all to make sure that the precision and the detail is where we want it to be headed in the first game.
Pat was pretty bullish on the offensive line at Big Ten Media Days. I think he said he got about 11 guys that are sort of in the mix there. I wonder what you make of that unit and what are the sort of things you're looking for guys to separate?
First thing, I think they're incredibly well coached. I think Coach Tabaka, Colin, Matt, they do a fantastic job. They're excellent teachers, great motivators. The players love them, but they're hard on them. And the players appreciate that because they want to be coached and they want to get better. And I know the entire group feels that way. And so first off, I give them a lot of credit. Secondly, I do think there's depth there. There's competition there. And we have the first full day of pads tomorrow, so I think it's a little bit early to really tell you kind of where it lays and who's where. And it's always important to cross-train guys that can play both sides, inside out, snap, because you just don't know what the season will bring you. So Coach Tabaka is doing an incredible job of that. We're cross-training guys at a lot of different spots. There's certainly experience in the room, guys that played a lot of football. And so we expect them, to play well, and that'll be important for us. Every game that we play, that the offensive line plays well. They know that. They understand the task ahead. So, but they're doing a nice job. They're working hard. They're getting better. There's still some installation. They'll start to slow down relative to the O-line. The run schemes get fewer and fewer, certain situational things. But, and then you really start to see, the guys that really know it, can master it, can handle the different things that our defense presents, which Coach Rossi and his staff do an incredible job. We got great players and a lot of challenging things, which is awesome for us to see every day in practice. So, they're working hard, and I love the kids, and I think their coach is fantastic. So it's a good group.
Nick, what does Alessio do best, and what would you most like to see from him in the next few weeks?
I think his character is outstanding. That's what I would tell you. I think he's got tremendous character. He's a great kid. His parents have done a really nice job. This is an awesome guy, and what a great place to start. You can talk about being a quarterback in the Big Ten. And so there's physical traits there. There's things that we like that way, but what a great kid. And he's a joy to coach. He wants to be coached. He likes to be coached, and he gets upset when you don't coach him. And so those are the things that I love about the kid. I love him. I love coaching him. Coach McNulty, Morgan have done an awesome job with him, but he shows up every day the same guy. And that's hard to do, as you all know. You guys all have jobs, it's like he brings it every day. He's ready to go, and I love that about the kid.
Is there something he's working on now where you see improvement every day?
I think situational awareness, he's still a young player. He has had experience in the games, which is great for him. But this isn't a double-digit starter. It's not like he started 15, 20 career games. So there's learning that is occurring, and he's embracing that. And so some situational things, awareness on the different down and distances, clock situations, field position situations. He can't get enough of that. And he does awesome. He learns, he applies it, he doesn't make the same mistake twice. And so his progression is as expected, and he's doing awesome. Yeah, he's doing great.
From an offensive standpoint, when you do put the pads on, what's that transition like in terms of, I guess, seeing more about retention and what the guys maybe carried over? Do you get a better gauge when the pads are on and when everything gets a little more live?
Yeah, well, it's real football with consequences, so yes, for sure. I think it reveals people in this sport when you put the pads on. That's our sport. This is contact tackle football, so there's obviously modifications in practice relative to how often we take guys to the ground and those types of things. But you find out a lot when, guys are getting thudded up and tackled, and Coach Rossi and the staff and the defensive players are punching at the ball. You find out the guys that can take care of the football. You find out the guys that play behind their pads. You find out the guys that can play downhill, which is what we're looking for. And so I don't think there's any doubt. The first couple of days are always a heavy emphasis on, alignment, assignment, technique, communication, the things that you have to handle to even get going, but yeah, no doubt when they put the pads on, you find out who can play football well, which is certainly
Do we talk enough about that on offense?
Sir?
Does it get talked about enough on offense? Because usually you hear that, they put the pads on, they can hit somebody.
Yeah.
Well, it's like everybody thinks defense first. But
Yeah, that's a big pet peeve of mine. It's like in recruiting sometimes, like I don't think this guy's a defensive player. That bothers me. It's like the same requirements for a 3 technique as for a left guard. We still want these guys to go knock the heck out of people. So, yes, yeah, that's important, that they play behind their pads, and so absolutely, the courage, the toughness, the willingness to go do it, to stick your face in there and do it multiple times, one play after another. And so we're looking for the same things, a great middle linebacker probably could be a good tailback, from a physicality standpoint, from a toughness, from all the things that we're looking for here under Fitz and at this place for sure.
What have you seen from some of the younger guys in wide receiver or tight end? Tap seems to be in a good spot. You have Savory, Whiting seem to make some noise. What have you seen from some of those younger
Learning,
guys?
growing. I do think there's competition that's going on in those rooms. Jaden certainly has been somebody that's been just continuing to get better. I think we all saw some of the movement and body control ability in spring. What I've been proud of him is I think he's playing more physical. He is, to the things that you guys just asked, he is playing behind his pads and trying to become a more dependable, reliable blocker, which is a normal transition. Waz has done an awesome job. Jaden has some, catching ability that maybe Waz never had as a player. Waz will probably tell you that. But Waz certainly was tough, and his players played tough. And so I have seen progress with Jaden from an ability to block the C and D gap, which is important, so that you can be treated like a tight end and not just like a wideout. And so Jaden has made strides for sure. And the wideouts they're coming along. There's a lot of competition in that room, guys that have ability for sure, but just the consistency, I think that's for every position. We're 5 practices in, we had a run through today, so there's still a lot of competition and snaps to be had and plays to be, made for those guys to kind of see where they're going to be for the opener, but knowing that's a long season, we're going to need them all, so they're all going to have to be ready to go.
And how will that process go? I assume at this point it's kind of like full menu with Alessio and the offense. There will be a point where you sharpen it down.
Sure.
What will that process look like? Are you looking forward to sort of learning more about what Alessio can do well, what he likes, what you like for him? You got that whole condensing process?
Yeah, we are evaluating that every minute of every day, and not just for him, but certainly, him to start is what does he do best, and we have a much better idea after spring than we did, before, and we know more after 5 practices. You're still making sure that your menu of things that you have to execute for the entirety of the year. We play different teams with different schemes, different personnels, and so you have to make sure you have enough volume to be able to handle the different things without feeling like the guys are learning new plays every week. There'll always be game plan specific things that you think are best to attack that team that week, but we're trying to build a menu that can handle the different fronts and coverages and people that we're going to go against, but we're constantly evaluating what the guys do best. And certainly the quarterback's a big piece, the O-line's a big piece of that. Which skill guys, what personnel groupings do we want to be in? Where do we want to put those guys? What routes, what run schemes? We talk about that every day, every minute. So that's an ongoing thing, and we want the guys to play fast. We want them to know what to do, know how to do it, and go like heck. So that's what we're trying to get to.
Sure, in some ways, you'd love to have a whole bunch of guys who've been with you for 4 years, but when you start from scratch as a play caller, is there a fun challenge to sort of trying to figure out what the pieces even are before you put them together, I guess?
I enjoy the challenge every year I've coached, regardless of the returners or new guys, or I just think it's awesome. I love football, I love coaching, and so I don't ever look at it that way, like, oh, we're in a great place because we have so many guys coming back, or man, it's just new. I mean, there's just a different challenge every year on getting that group to play their best and trying to find a way to win the games. And so I'm having a blast every day. But I try to do that every year I've coached. There's some days it's not the most fun, Joe does a great job, but we're having a blast. Kids have been awesome, staff's phenomenal, Fitz is incredible. It's been great, yeah.
The GoPro that Alessio wears, how much can that elevate what he sees from the film room? Because it's a lot different of a perspective, I feel like, for him to have that. How much of an advantage is that?
There's a combination there. We there's certainly a vision element. You can see where he turned his head. We have stripes on the helmet, so we can see where his eyes are looking at when he takes the snap. There's also a lot of things that we can hear, so there's a mic there, so you can hear how he communicated at the line of scrimmage or in the huddle or wherever we're doing. So there's a lot of, we're always searching for the best way to teach. That's what we do as coaches. We try to teach, and so it's a good teaching tool, and we use it when we feel like it's appropriate and it can help the guys play better and understand the importance of certain coaching points or, where they should put their eyes or what they should be saying. And we hear the quarterback. We also hear the other guys too. We can't hear the wide receiver that's 30 yards away, but we can hear what the O-line said or didn't say or whatever those things may be. So we're constantly looking for, an edge there, and Fitz is always pushing us to do that and provides us with the resources to do it. So it's been great. It's been good.
The running back room, you obviously brought in Cam, you got a chance to see him in the spring. I'm wondering how he's kind of progressed through this, and behind him or fighting with him, I guess the question, like, what are you seeing from maybe some of the younger guys like Tullis and Clarizio, and how much competition is there right now in that group?
There's a lot of competition. And I think Cam's learning every day. He's played a lot of football. He's had a lot of carries. He understands some of the intricacies of run schemes for sure. And the things that he was, asked to do, there's carryover. He was well coached at UConn, and their staff did a nice job for sure. And so there's carryover. There's only so many run plays. There's zone plays inside and outside. There's gap plays. So there's only so many run schemes. And so he certainly has a familiarity and an ability to handle those things. I think some of the intricacies, whether it be protection or route running, he's just stacking days like the rest of the group and getting better and better. And he's doing a great job. And Coach Spalding and Grover, have both played the position not too long ago. They understand the importance of the details of that position. I think sometimes that gets misinterpreted, that maybe running backs and, there's not a lot to it. There's tons of detail relative to the reads, the protections, the routes, and Coach Spalding does an awesome job, and Grover, they do a great job together of coaching those guys. And I think there's a lot of young players that are pushing for time, and I think Marv has done a great job. Marv Parrish has been fantastic, really good in blitz pickup. And so he's growing and getting better every day. You mentioned Tullis, BT has showed up in some blitz pickup situations. Jazz, there's a lot of competition, and that's a position that always, you need depth. You need to have depth throughout the year in our league. As physical as
that versatility of size and style with the guys too.
But yeah, there's a mix there. There's some bigger guys, and there's some guys that I wouldn't say are small, but maybe not as big. That's probably an easy way to say it. And so the more you do well, the harder you are to defend. So we're constantly looking at that. And so Zion's another kid that certainly has flashed and showed some things that we like. So they're all working hard. Dev's doing a great job.
Nick, following up on that, how many running backs would you like to play? Would you rather have a bell cow guy? Would you rather have two complement each other, or a bunch of guys who do all kinds of things?
Number one, we want to win, and so whatever combination that is to help that. I think there's a longevity piece with the running backs. I think the game, you see a little bit more of multiple guys trying to split some load, some load management or whatever you want to call it, just the carries. The guys, you don't want the guys to have 25 carries in a game. I know that was common, not too long ago, but it's a little tougher. You look around, there's not many guys that are doing that. So I think it's good for their group to have multiple guys that can carry, but they got to earn that, and so we don't have a preference one way or the other. If it's one person and that's their, the way we need to go, then that's what it is. But I think there's multiple guys that deserve to have the ball in their hands, and that'll help everybody stay fresh, stay healthy, to just get to the season, the way you want and feel like you're full speed each game.
Let's see, Cam obviously have some different sort of skill sets. So moving forward at QB, would you like to have a variety in that room, or would you rather have guys that are more similar than not sort of stacked up there?
I mean, we certainly have a profile at every position that we're looking for, but we're looking for great football players, and they come, especially at quarterback. I think, at that position, maybe more so than others, they come in all shapes, sizes, speeds, arm talents. It's just hard to explain that, It's like, that's the one position. You look around the NFL, you see the left guard for each team, they all look about the same. You see the Z receiver, they all look kind of similar. You look at the quarterbacks, you got such a wide range of skill sets, of heights, of movement abilities. And so there's such a an importance on decision making at that position that some guys, there's been plenty of guys that run 5.040 that were great quarterbacks, and some guys run 4.4 and they're good too. So we'll take them all, whatever's helps us win, and we're capable and have experience of coaching different guys. The last two guys I was fortunate to be around with, Jalen and Ty, those guys were completely different, and they were much different than Mike, and so you guys have all seen that. There's just different styles. We're just looking for the guy that plays a position the right way, leads the team, represents us all from a toughness and a leadership standpoint the way we want.
Also, I was just curious, do you call games up top or on the field?
I know I have a real good sense of where I'll be, but we still have a few weeks before we have to, make a final decision on that.
Carson Golker, with all the different places you can put him at, how do you best utilize a player like that when you can have him go run a route, you can throw the ball, or you can run it as well?
Yeah, well, first we just don't tell anybody how we're going to use them. That's probably the best way to do that. But for any player where they have, some versatility, I think it's finding the things they do best, making them tough to defend, but still not overloading them where they don't get good at the things you're going to ask them to do. But certainly Golk's got, versatility. You mentioned Jaden earlier. Certainly he has a different skill set than some other guys, with the different things that he's able to do. So, but try not to tell anybody, specifics on a kid like Golk. But certainly he's got talent and ability.
How fun is it, I guess, for you as an offensive coordinator to have a
fun? We're having fun every day. We just, we love what we do, and how do we put the players in the best position to be successful? So it's, like I said earlier, I love football, I love coaching, so that's certainly part of the job that we all enjoy.
How does the 5-for-5, no red shirt, from a play caller standpoint, to get those younger guys integrated? Is that kind of like having a little extra in the toolbox, or like?
I think that's a great question. It's a really good question. I think the thing, like in my career, that has always been tricky is you have to do what's best for the team, and you're trying to do what's best for the individual relative to their eligibility. And so I think the great thing is that you can just continue to develop them without putting a ceiling on them, like can you get them in, or when do you have to, and those types of things, because you just don't know what the season is going to bring for you. And so for those guys to be able to, there were times where there's guys that definitely were, maybe they won a 1 or a 2, but they were a 2.5, but it's like we got to redshirt them, and so you can't even let them get in the game ever. You can't even get them in on special teams for a few snaps, and so that part's good. You don't have to worry about that. You know that if they help you win, put them in the game. And you're not concerned about losing a year for a kid for 10 snaps, for 1 week, but then you can't play him the rest of the time, and so. That part you don't have to be concerned with, and I think for the health of your team, your ability to play all the players throughout the year, it just helps you withstand just the natural bumps and bruises you'll encounter throughout the season.
As a former quarterback, can you feel like the confidence level in your offense when you need to go get a yard on the ground? Everybody knows you're probably going to run. When you can do that, is not something that this program has done really well in recent years, and not asking you to look back, but just the feeling of, all right, everybody knows what we're going to do, and we're just going to be the more physical team and get the yards that we need.
Yeah, we'll be in full pass tomorrow, so that'd be a great time. You could ask me after practice, so there's a lot of factors that go into it. Certainly it starts up front, but the runner's got to run through people also. So we have guys that are capable. Yeah, I have no concern about that, and now we got to do it. We got to coach it, and we got to get the guys to execute and do it. But we understand the challenges of those situations and what that does for your team and the mindset and the mentality and why that's important. And so the players will understand that as well.
There you hear Nick Sheridan, and pretty complete review of the offense. Got questions about a lot of different aspects. Not really tipping his hand, but who knows? They haven't started full padded practice yet, so there are a lot of things he probably doesn't know, not just doesn't want to share. Want to thank all of our guests today, starting with Daniela Bruce from the Detroit Tigers television broadcast team. You see her with some fun pieces during the games with fans, especially the Wild Bruce Chases. Of course, she's a proud MSU alum. Look forward to seeing her back here after the baseball season ends. Also want to thank Stephen Brooks, 24/7 Sports Spartan Tailgate Premium site. Stephen with his 8 bold predictions. You can go to 24/7 and you can take a look at those. See what you think, how many you agree with. Find out if he needs a sobriety test. Also, I want to thank Mark Ewell, longtime executive director of the Michigan High School Athletic Association, getting ready for another big school year. We got high school football starting here in a little more than 2 weeks. Looking forward to that. And Nick Sheridan, MSU offensive coordinator. See you tomorrow, everyone.